Today I'd like to do a video and show you guys a quick, simple way to sharpen your chainsaw blades. Um, I've been wanting to do this video for a while. We do a lot of cutting of firewood here. We heat our home with firewood exclusively, and we use it for our maple when we cook down our sap for our syrup. So we go through a lot of firewood. We've got woods here. We've got a lot of downed trees. We've actually got more firewood than I can use, but one of the biggest things to keeping a chainsaw working properly and cutting quickly and effectively is making sure that the saw blade is sharp and going to cut properly, and it'll help keep the saw cooler. It will keep the blade working better. It will extend its life if you sharpen it properly and don't use it dull. Also, one of the biggest things here is when you are cutting, do not touch this saw blade to the dirt or to any rocks or anything like that. That's going to kill your blade almost immediately. I do have a couple other chainsaw blades hanging up here on the wall, but I use I don't know if you can see this in the video, I just use round files to do this. Make sure that you check what the spacing on your chain is and the size of the teeth on it, and match those to the file. If you don't know what you've got, take the chain with you to the chainsaw shop or the small engine repair shop and have them size it for you to make sure that you get the right file, because without the right file, you're actually going to make this worse. I like to use a round file on it, and as you can see, my chain here is already marked with a yellow mark here, but the teeth on this, there are teeth on both sides. And what happens, I'm going to see if I can zoom in here and show you a little closer. So one of the teeth here, like this tooth, is on this side of the blade, and this is the cutting edge right here. This tooth is on this side. So if you happen to sharpen one of these teeth more than the other, and you may have even found that when you're cutting, that the blade does not want to go completely straight down through the log. It actually wants to kick sideways. And that's because one of these teeth, the length of it from this end to that end, if you file it down too far, and like this one you can tell is just a tiny bit longer than that one. And it's because I misfiled this. So basically what's going to happen, this saw is not going to cut straight down through, and I'm actually been having that issue. The other part of it is if you look straight across on this, the height of this cutting piece right here, the top of this tooth, there's a thing called a raker, and that's this thing right here. And if this raker is sticking up higher than this, it's not going to cut at all. And so as you start cutting that back and filing this back more and more, this is going to get lower. It's going to actually drop down. And then you have to take the top of this raker off a little bit with a flat file and knock the top of that raker off. Now, if you do too much there, this thing's going to dig in and it's going to bog the saw down. So there's a lot of different aspects to properly sharpening a chainsaw blade. The other thing that I like to do with these is every time I've got the bar or the chain off of here and cleaning things out and stuff like that, I'll flip the bar, flip it upside down. And what that does, you're pushing down on the bottom side of this when you push down onto a log, and it's going to create wear along this edge. And so what happens is if you create all the wear on this edge and none up here, this bar is going to be worn crooked. Or it's going to get a knurl down at the bottom, and you should be able to feel straight across there. There shouldn't be any lip on the edge of that. You shouldn't be able to catch your fingernail on it. This bar, I feel a little bit there, but this bar, I just flipped it here recently, and I tend to try to flip my bar often. So anyhow, I'm going to show you basically the pattern that I use for using the file on these teeth. I'm going to see if I can zoom in a little bit so you can actually see what I'm doing. We'll try that. Hopefully it focuses on it. So, when you're using a file, remember with this file, a file only works in one direction. So this file, you can actually feel the teeth on it. if you pull it backwards, it's not doing anything. You're only cutting when you push forward. If you keep it in against there and pull back on it, you're actually wearing the file down, and you're not doing anything to the tooth on here. So what I like to do is I like to start on these, and there, a lot of the chainsaw blades, there's actually a line marked into it on the angle that it's supposed to be. But what you want to do is you want to get down into the gut of that, and you want to angle it up, and it shouldn't take much pressure to come across there. And you only need to do that a couple times because it's making a point there. And the edge of that should feel a little bit sticky. And some of the points on this are not in the greatest shape, but what I like to do is just go across it just a couple times. You want to do the same amount on the teeth that go this way as the teeth that go that way. So if you file this tooth across here 3 strokes, you want to do that for every single tooth the whole way around on both sides with the same amount of pressure. That will file them down evenly. So I'm going to start here, and I'm going to work, and I'm just going to do each of these like that. So there's 3 strokes on that. I'll move down. Okay, so I'm back around to here. So now I need to go the opposite direction and file this way with it. This becomes more difficult because if you are right-handed or left-handed or wherever you're set at, it's going to be a little harder to file one direction than the other. So what you need to do with that is make sure you can position the saw in a way that you can try to do the same exact file as you did with the same pressure at the same angle. So I'm going to turn the saw here. So all I've done here is rotated the saw around to the other side. So now I can get these and do them basically the same way. Okay, so at this point, I want to talk about some different types of chainsaw sharpening. Some people do it with a round file, some people do it with a square file. They have tools that you can actually, that hold the file, and hopefully I can pull up some of these pictures for you. But basically they set on the chain so you can get the proper angle to go across there. They also have automated ones that you can buy that have a grinder on them. And the ones with a grinder on them, there's pros and cons to it. The ones that have an electric grinder on them, they do work, but they're not going to get it quite as sharp as you can get it with a file. They also are going to take more material off your chain, which is going to wear your chain down quicker. The other thing that you have to do is, in order to put these into the chainsaw sharpener itself, most systems you have to pull the chain off of the saw and take it completely off, put it onto the machine, run it through. If you don't cut that often, an electric chainsaw sharpener could be a good option for you. If you're cutting a lot, like I like to take the file out to the woods with me. I keep it in my bin of stuff, and if I happen to touch the ground or something like that, I will stop the saw. I'll go through and actually sit on the saw and touch it up. I'll just go over it with one pass or 2 passes or whatever, just to sharpen the chain a little bit more. I like a nice sharp chain on my saw. I get frustrated really quickly when my saw doesn't cut properly. But there's a lot of different pros and cons to it. I know the pros to the chainsaw sharpeners that are electric is if you don't know what you're doing, they work. Same thing for the file guides. If you don't know what you're doing, they work really well. I've been sharpening chainsaw blades for a long time, since I was a little kid, and I was taught a couple different ways to do it, and I've learned some things through the internet. So don't take my word for it. Check out some of the other videos out there, but that's the basics of it.